This episode is brought to you by Amazon Prime. There's nothing sweeter than baking cookies during the holidays. With Prime, I get all my ingredients delivered right to my door, fast and free, no last-minute store trips needed. And of course, I blast my favorite holiday playlist on Amazon Music. It's the ultimate soundtrack for creating unforgettable memories. From streaming to shopping, it's on Prime. Visit Amazon.com/Prime to get more out of whatever you're into.
Joining me in this episode is professional squash player Melissa Alves, who has been having a fantastic season despite an injury early on. She won the Cape Town Squash Open tournament shortly after we spoke, which of course is super exciting, but even more so because she had mentioned that the tournament was one of her goals. Hello and welcome. This is Hear Her Sports, the female athlete podcast for everyone who loves stories by and about women striving to improve and make a difference in their lives. I am your host, Elizabeth Emery. In each episode, I introduce a female athlete or a woman in the business of sport through a thoughtful conversation about who they are and all of the terrific work they're doing. My guests and I get into what their sport is all about and what it's like being a female athlete today. Melissa loves playing squash. She started playing at 4.5 years old at the Tennis Squash Club in Kourou in French Guiana. Immediately she took to the game and got good very early on. She is a 3-time French junior champion. In the episode, we hear the stories about starting out as a young player, her amazing coach, the transition from a college player to pro, but Melissa had no intention of playing professionally until her senior year of college. She explains how different the training as a pro is from even a top collegiate player. She graduated from the University of Pennsylvania, where she won the Ivy League championship in the 2014-15 season and was the captain of the women's team from 2016 through 2018. Melissa is now 6 years out of college and as an older player is learning more how to become the player that she wants to be. One thing Melissa and I talk a lot about is her wrist injury and how she had to change her swing so she could play healthy. And she meant had to change. Coming up with a new way to hit the ball was the only way she could keep playing. She had no choice. I find this fascinating. I mean, think about how many hours she had played using her old swing. She started when she was super young, she was a collegiate player, and has been pro since then. That is a lot of muscle memory over the years. I love that necessity is the mother of invention, even in sports. Maybe this is fascinating and top of the mind because in my own squash game, I've been struggling to get good power to the ball. It is absolutely my technique. I am not very good. I am definitely a beginner. But just recently, I arrived tired to the court for a match and started feeling a twinge in my arm when I was hitting. So avoiding that discomfort, my body finally figured out how to use my torso and hips to hit rather than with just my spindly old arm. I guess I'm saying that it's magnificent and cool that your body can figure out new ways of moving when faced with the challenge of an injury, as Melissa discovered. And so far anyway, all of the work that she put into changing her stroke is paying off with great results. You can do the same thing. Change your technique, I mean. Keep listening to the tips Melissa shares about how she managed to do it. Melissa also goes through some of her training and why she incorporates cycling into her off-season training. And we hear about the very impressively elaborate dinners she creates whenever she is at home. Everything she loves about the game of squash and taking up space on the court, or as she phrases it, not being small for others. Melissa is super fun to watch play. Squash is fun to watch. In the show notes, there's a link to highlights from a match at the Women's Canadian Open this year with Melissa beating Nayla Cole. In the tournament, Melissa made it to the semifinals, which is an example of one of her great results this year. YouTube and Facebook often have squash to watch for free, or subscribe to Squash TV, which is how Melissa watches. Before we start, Melissa in the episode mentions that she likes to stay at billets. I had to ask her what that actually was. It turns out it's host housing. Lots of tournaments in many sports connect the athletes with local fans of the sport who open up their homes. It is amazing. When I was bike racing, we often stayed with host families, and it was awesome, and we could never thank them enough. Those families were just so nice, unbelievably generous, and really made competing so much easier and more fun and absolutely more memorable. I'm still in contact with some of those folks. Melissa, too, prefers billets or host housing and explains why. She was great to talk to. I am so glad she could join us. Enjoy. Here is Melissa Alves. Melissa, thank you so much for being here and welcome to Hear Her Sports. I'm really looking forward to it as a squash player and, hoping we'll meet one day.
Thank you for having me. Absolutely.
Well, first I want to comment, you look like you're having a really good season so far. I mean, it's sort of still early in the season, but did you change anything in your off season? Like what happened in the off season? Can you attribute anything
Well,
to your super success?
I'm 30 now, so I feel like my getting more mature in my game. I know what I want, how I want to play, and what my strengths are. I did work really, really hard this summer. Did a lot of fitness, a lot of biking in the mountains in the south of France, which was beautiful, but also very hard. And the problem, what happened is beginning of the season, I got hurt 1 week before the season started.
Oh,
So I started the season, and then I did my first tournament in Egypt, and then there was a tournament in Paris that I missed, unfortunately, due to a wrist injury that I contracted actually a year prior. So I had to change a lot of things then, my swing, my technique. So I don't, use my wrist so much. And this was probably the hardest time since I started because I felt like I was ready, and then I got hurt. I had to stop when everybody was playing and was starting the season. And this is a time where I worked really hard on my technique, on my body, and I was just very excited to come back. So then I did had like a very good 3 weeks in the U.S. and in Canada with my biggest win and just good matches.
how does a player at your level who has been playing as long as you have change something so fundamental as how you're using your wrist and your arm?
That was hard. I thought it was honestly just not possible. I wouldn't say my swing is completely different, but it is definitely when you love the sport and you watch so many other players, it's not easy, but you can kind of mimic what they do. Some players don't use their wrist so much. They use their shoulder, they use their elbow, they use different part of their arms to swing, and then you look at them and you say, well, if I want to preserve my body, if I want to keep playing, I gotta look like that a bit more. So I think this is what I did. And I trained. I just a lot of hours on court solo, and I knew I wanted to play, so it was my only chance. It's this or nothing. So,
Did you watch a lot of videos?
oh yeah, that's all you do. It's pretty much it. Because at first you can't really play that much, right? Because my
Right.
wrist, I had to get an injection. I got to get many like surgeries on my wrist. So, um, it's just not you cannot play for so long and not so hard. And then when you have to play, it has to be perfect. It has to be what you had in mind. So a lot of videos with my coach, and also I watch a lot of squash. I mean, I watch my friends play on squash TV all the time. So it's not like I don't. I do watch the sport all the time, so I kind of know what to do to change.
You mentioned cycling in the south of France. Explain to me how much you're doing that. And I'm really fascinated by how much fitness, like very specific, dedicated fitness training you're doing in terms of like cardio and strength versus how much time you're on the court and doing this, manipulating your technique and all that.
I do all of this in the summer, like the biking in the mountains, the long rides. That's my summer training when we have like this, 6 to 8 weeks off, and I can dedicate 4 weeks to biking 3 to 4 times a week. Long rides, like it starts from like 90 minutes, and then the longest ride would be like 3 hours when at the end of like those 4 weeks that I would ride a lot. But I only do it in the summer. I would sometimes do it during the year. Maybe if like in between the tournament, I just want to go for a ride, but not as intense as I do over the summer. And then I spend a lot of time in the gym also over the summer, like usually in July. A lot of riding my bike, a lot of gym, and then when August comes, I let that and everything get back on court, doing more specifics, and then working on my technique really. But and also July, like the time that you're biking and you're going to the gym, you're so tired physically, it's almost impossible to add a squash session. So
Right.
this is when you do solo, and this is when you have time to work on your technique. So it's the best time to combine everything. Very hard fitness and little movement on court, but focus on your technique.
So I would not have paired cycling with squash. What is the idea of those two? Is there like a direct connection, or is it just
Uh,
fitness?
my fitness
Or is
coach,
it
that's what he tells me, and I what I believe when I do it is it's for the cardio. When you do an effort for this long, like 90 minutes, 2 hours, it just brings like your average heart rate down, like you're able to maintain an effort for 2 3 hours, so eventually your just your heart works better. And then at high intensity you do it on court, but the main idea of biking is to prevent injuries, right? It's not as hard on the knees, it's not as hard on the ankle, it's not as hard on the back when you're not running or when you're not stepping on court. So it's a way of pushing your cardio, getting your heart rate, really high when you go up for like, maybe 15 20 minutes up a hill. It's that's where you get your heart rate up, and it mimics like what we do in squash, but also no pain the next day. Like you only have sore muscles, but your Achilles don't hurt, your back doesn't hurt, like your elbows or your hips. You know what I mean? Like it's just a way of working hard and getting you and preventing your body, like preventing injuries.
right? It's interesting though, because when I started playing squash, I noticed right away that I'm a cyclist. I noticed right away that my climbing on the bike was better. So there must be some sort of, I don't know, interesting comparison.
I mean, the squash is definitely high intensity, very short, much very short, because now the rallies are getting so much longer.
Right.
But overall, like it's a 1 hour deal, right? Like you're done in 45 minutes even. And then we go, 30, 40 seconds rallies, but very little rest, right? We rest like 10, 12 seconds max in between points. On the bike, you never stop. And eventually, if you go up and down, right, your heart rate goes up, down when you're going down. So I feel like in terms of the interval, it mimics like what squash is, but over a longer period.
Right. And it also squashes all those lunges and squats, which are certainly cycling related.
Cycling, absolutely. You get your quads strong. You also get leaner by biking so much.
Ah,
You
interesting.
also get the nice, the biker's legs. Like they're just, strong quads, strong hamstring. You definitely work on your calf. I mean, and like I say, you don't have the impact of bouncing on the floor, jumping, and running down the court. So it's a win-win.
Yeah.
It's also like when you're in the south of France, you should absolutely take advantage of you know, just the views and the mountains right there. So it's also a good way to be outside.
Yes, it is. And have a little coffee somewhere on the way.
Absolutely.
So you live in France?
Now I do. I moved down. I always do my summer training in France. That's been for the last 3 years anyway. Because I like to come here to do the bike with the boys that are here, and my fitness coach was based here. But now I do. I moved in July. Yeah, I moved in July. So now I'm based here full time.
Got it. Well, let's talk a little bit about your post college turning pro. It's been 6 years ish, right?
Yeah.
So you're well into it. But what was that transition like? And did you change your training, or how did you change your training?
I changed completely my training because I didn't want to play squash professionally. That was not the idea when I moved to the States. I decided that I wanted to, pursue like my to study more, get a degree, a good degree, and I wanted to have a job, like I want to say a regular job, right?
What kind of regular job were you thinking?
I mean, I was doing economics,
Uh huh.
but the thing that I really liked was marketing. I did consumer psychology at the same time. I did my one major there, and I like my minor more, pretty much. So I wanted to work in marketing.
Got it.
That would have been the dream. But I did one internship for, in a bank. It was not something so interesting, to be honest. I studied something that I knew was good, but a bit boring. After 2 or 3 years, I was not into it at all.
Yeah. Okay. So then, how did you change your training?
Well, then
Go back to that. Yeah.
when I decided to go pro, it was senior year. It was senior year.
Oh, interesting. Okay.
So yeah, because of the tournament in Philadelphia, the U.S. Open.
Oh, yeah.
It was there, and I used to go and watch Camille Serm, who is one of my best friend on tour, and she was also the mentor, my role model, obviously, like the French, our best player that we've ever had. So she was very successful at the time, and I used to go watch her play at the U.S. Open, also all the other girls, but mainly Camille. And then I think one year, I think my junior year, she won it. Maybe my sophomore or my junior year, she won it, and I was like, wow, that's actually awesome. And then there was also a lot of girls that I played in juniors that were there. They were there. They had really good ranking, over like top 20, 25. And I thought, oh, maybe I should have stick to it. I should have tried maybe. And my coach at the time was like, it's not too late. Just graduate and go pro, and that's what I did. So after that, I moved to Paris. I graduated Penn, moved to Paris, and then my training completely changed because I was just doing whatever I had to do to be good and play for the team.
Right.
My level from juniors, honestly, was good enough to be in the top five, and then eventually in the top two of my team. And then I just kept the training. I mean, I was being very rigorous with my training, but only really what I was doing at Penn. Only maybe the last semester of my senior year, I started training like twice, starting to have individuals in the morning and then do the team training and then go to the gym. Maybe the last 6 months or maybe last year when I really decided I wanted to go pro. So the last year of my college years, and then moved to Paris, joined the French national team, and they were all the girls were pretty much in Paris at the time. I mean, Camille and Nora was there, and I joined the team and the group. I mean, and then we just had like Philippe as a coach, who was he led Camille to be the world number two. He trained her whole life, so he knows a lot about training. And with him, I made great success, great progress. But I trained a lot more. It was a lot more intense, twice a day minimum, up to Saturday morning. A lot of fitness on the court. We had a fitness coach specifically, which we didn't have at Penn. Very different stuff.
Were you surprised by any of that?
Um, no, because I every summer I was going when I went back to France or some on some vacation, I would play a little bit. I would keep training because I just love playing. So I would keep training in the summer and play with the girls. So I would go and have the opportunity of training with Camille, training with Philippe. So I knew what it was. I knew how intense it was. It was just, can I do it over a long period of time? Can I do it the whole season? But I already knew exactly how he was working. The most impressive was how Camille was working, like seeing the difference between how I train and how a professional train. And then she taught me everything at the time about how to take care of your body, how to be a professional, how to be a champion like she was. So I didn't catch everything the first year, but over 3 years, I caught most of it, I think.
What would be something in that category of, being a professional that maybe people who aren't familiar would find interesting?
It's the consistency. It's the consistency of doing everything perfect with what you have. So like if she's 20%, she'll give everything of this 20%. And me, if I'm 50%, I'll give zero of the 50%. That's how I started. That's how you start when you come from, oh, today I don't feel good. And then nothing. But she will give 100 of everything that she has that day. So I always feel like she's working so hard, no matter how good or how bad she's on that day or how she's feeling. And that's the consistency.
Mhm.
And what else? That also how professional she is. Like how you're not an athlete only when you show up at practice. You're not even an athlete only when you wake up in the morning and go to bed. You're an athlete 24/7. And Camille was very good at that. She was very good at being an athlete all the time. So taking
That's
care of,
hard.
yeah.
Yeah.
Even with the good times, like the vacation and the time off and the family day, but she was very good at switching back and knowing exactly when she needs to be on it, what she needs to do outside the court to be on it when she's on court and be fully prepared. She was very good at that.
Well, you mentioned that you love playing squash. What is it about squash that's so great?
First of all, we play squash. Not all the sports we play, but
I
we
agree,
play
yeah.
squash. So it's fun.
Yeah.
To start. The other thing that I would say is, for me, it was I got everything through squash, so much, so I'm definitely biased. But I think it's a sport that has everything in terms of cardio, the intensity. You have the game, so you can play. You have the mind game. You also have tactic. That's very important. The technique is important. The physicality. I feel like it's a sport that has a bit of everything, even contact. Like it's definitely not it's not boxing or it's not all these sports, but it's still, there's contact, right? You can physically touch your opponent. I think it's just a sport that has everything. It's chess, but with the racket and fast pace.
What are you working on right now?
Still working on my swing because my new swing is Is sometimes I go back to my old swing, which I know is hurting my body. So I'm working on having that new swing accurate, even when I'm tired, even when I'm in a situation where I'm not feeling confident. That's what I'm working on.
Don't skip over this. I want to try something. Sharing Hear Her Sports with a friend is one of the greatest impact actions you can do for the show. And I'm thinking that if each one of you right now tells one person, wow, that would be amazing, that would double listenership. So, as the rest of the episode is playing, send a quick text to someone and see if this actually happens. It's easy to send the episode directly from your player using the share arrow. Another great place to direct listeners is to the Hear Her Sports Spotify playlists, which are easy to find from the main menu of our website at hearhersports.com. The playlists include a few favorites: aging well, nutrition, Paris Olympics, and cycling. And I just created a new one with all of the runners who have been on the show. And there have been so many more than I even remembered: marathoners, coaches, track racers, dietitians, trail runners, and ultra runners. And once you're on the website, look around. It's easy to explore every single episode. Each guest has her own show notes page that includes a short bio and links to topics discussed on the show.
This episode is brought to you by Honda. When you test drive the all-electric Prologue SUV, there's a lot that can impress you about it. There's the generous passenger space, the clean, thoughtful design, and the intuitive technology. But out of everything, what you'll really love most is that it's a Honda. Visit honda.com/EV to see offers.
Now, back to professional squash player Melissa Alves. Let's hear about how she started playing at 4.5 years old, the role of luck, and what food from French Guiana is like. We didn't talk about it, but you started playing when you were incredibly young. Like, how did that come about, and how did you take to it so quickly?
Yeah, it's my first ever sport. I was like four
Yeah,
and a half. Yeah.
that's incredible. 4.
Yeah, I was four. I come from French Guiana, right? A small country in South America. So it's not a lot to do there. There's not a lot. You can play football, which is soccer. You can play tennis, maybe if the coach is around. And then you can play. You can bike. But that's about it. I mean, other sports as well. Judo was big at the time because we had very good judo in French Guiana, but not a lot of sports. So I was going to play tennis, and then they had no more slot. I think that it was completely packed for the year. And there was just this new coach. We had 3 squash courts there. I don't really know why we have the squash courts, but and they said, "Hey, there's this guy. He's coming from France. He wants to start squash in French Guiana. Why don't you start this racket sport, and then you can switch back to tennis?" And then I met my coach. That I owe him this because he was just so awesome that I didn't want to change. I just wanted to play squash. I didn't care about tennis, and then that's it. I was pretty good at it from a young age, so it got me to travel, got me to go play French championships, playing the European Junior Tour. So yeah, it's just my first sport. I fell in love with it.
How did you, I'm just picturing a country with only 3 courts, and it just sounds hard to, I don't know, make that work.
I mean, my coach was just like amazing.
Okay.
Like the connection between French Guiana and France is very much present. We have a lot of people from France. Where I'm from, in my town, this is where we launched the rocket in French Guiana. So for all Europe, so we have some Italian coming, Russians sometimes, very small though, but we have a lot of people from France that come to work there. I think that's why we have the 3 courts, because at some point we needed to build stuff because in French Guiana people just play soccer a lot, run track, play soccer, and bike. Not much. Usually it's for people from France that play the tennis, all these sports, and squash was probably for them. For it was built there by their company, and then there was just a coach who arrived that day and said, "You know what? I'm gonna." It's still France, right? French Guiana is not an independent country. It's a state of France. It's not independent. So we have people from France coming. He said he saw an opportunity of starting his own academy in French Guiana, and he was just so good at it. I'm not the only French national champion. When I was a junior, we had like, I think we have like 6 or 7 over the years in every category. He was just very good at his job, and then we had a lot of funding from French Guiana because we were pretty successful, and it just kept going, man. All my junior years, I was able to travel with a lot of help from French Guiana, from my town, from the state, and just play a lot of squash. My coach was awesome. I just kept improving, and then when it was a time when I could not improve anymore, this is when I moved to France.
Hmm. It's so interesting to me, you know, like how important luck was. I mean, obviously you're very talented, but there's also this, you know, like you lucked into
Oh
having
yeah.
this coach show up. I mean, it's
Oh,
amazing.
absolutely. Absolutely. It would have been very, very different. It would have, my mom could have said, no, no, I want her to play tennis, you know?
Right.
And cause see you next year. I was only 4. I could have waited until I was 5. But I think the coach was there, and he was like, no, just, I'm starting this. It's a fun sport. And till this day, my coach, he's like my second father, right? Like we talk almost every day. He's still in my life, and he's like he's my father in the sport, in my life in sport. That's who he is. So he just taught me everything from the sport, but also life. Yeah, I was just very lucky. That's luck right there. That's luck right there. And then some other time, it's a lot of luck.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, since we're talking about French Guiana, you mentioned that you wanted to develop squash in your state of what should I call it? Should I call it a country?
It's a country because it's on the continent. We have borders like with Brazil, with Suriname, but technically my passport is French.
Okay.
My passport is French. It's a state, but honestly, people call it a country. It's a country of French Guyana.
Got it. Well, you've talked about wanting to develop squash there in French Guiana. Like, what does that look like? How would you do that?
Well, first, when my coach left, we had a hard time finding a new coach. So for 2 years, there was no coaches there. The people from the parents, they're awesome. They kept the club alive still. So they would give lessons to the kids on Saturdays or Wednesdays. But then we found a coach. He stayed for a year or two and then left. And we finally have a new one. Hopefully he stays this time because the people there, they really love squash. They want to keep this alive. So this is first how I can help is to find someone who can coach there all the time while I'm not, ready to quit my professional career yet and move back to help. And then I heard 3 other courts that were being built in the capital of French Guiana. So that's 3 more courts in a different city. And my goal will be to make sure that there is always a coach and to bring more kids to the program, because you can have coaches that focus on adults and just give lessons at night. I want to make sure that everybody can play squash in French Guiana. And my coach did that. He had kids from pretty much all the schools in my town in Kourou, all the way to high school. Yeah, there was a program where you could play squash either to in sports in high school and middle school. So I want to make sure that this is available in every city, at least the 3 big cities in my country, because squash gave me all the opportunities, and I want the kids in my town, in my country, to dream, big. And with a sport like squash, which is not so popular and not so competitive yet, like soccer or or basketball or handball, I think it's a good way of traveling, seeing something different, getting in a like me to study abroad, everything that I got, and that's because I started playing squash.
Yeah, there are a lot of opportunities in squash.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in French Guiana, just to get someone to keep the club active, to have people in there. Um, when you do a good job, when you're friendly, when you're nice to people, you always attract good people. So a
Yeah.
lot of talent in French Guiana. The kids just need to dream.
Were there girls in your program and boys that you sort of equal numbers? It's always interesting to me how often in these kids programs so many more boys show up.
Yeah, no, it was equal pretty much. No, no, we had a really good group. Like I said, 6 or 7 of us were for champion. We're number one in France. We were a dominant. We were really good. We are top 3, I think, clubs when I was playing junior in France. And no, it was boys and girls, same. And I
That's
would
awesome.
say that right now in French, with the kids at the school over there, I'd say that it's pretty much same.
Well, I want to go back to something you said about squash being not quite a contact sport, but certainly you can touch people. One of the things that's very particular about squash is that it takes place in a confined and pretty small space. So, talk about how you learn to deal with those limits and having to both take up space but not block the other space. I mean, describe all that happens on court.
Yeah, me, I love the physical, part of squash in terms of you can touch your opponent. I think I love it. I love this part of the game. And it's I think you can see it's evolving these days with the different rules and what you're allowed to do and not allowed to do. The other sport that I played when I was little was judo. Don't know what some people in the US, it's not so common. It's very very popular in Europe, but you hold your opponent. It's I don't know. I just always love the physical part of this. But if we're in the same space, we're gonna share the same room. Then at some point, you need to feel my presence, and I need to feel yours. That makes sense. If we never touch each other, then that means the competitiveness to me it's not is not there.
Hmm, interesting. Do
Not
you
that I want to block or that I want to, prevent you from going to the ball, right? Not this far. I hate this extreme part of the game. But what I like is that you're going to share at some point you're going to be in my where I'm going to be on yours, and I need to make sure that I that you're not scared of me, but you should feel me. I think it's important. I think that's where the best players, that's where they make a good difference, and they're not scared. They're not scared of the physical contact.
are you always aware of the rules and you're sort of pushing the limits of that? I mean, you talked about not wanting to play that sort of aggressive game.
Oh yeah, no, 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 no. I hate when it's because the problem is that it gets dangerous.
Right? No, of
When
course.
you
Yeah.
step into your opponent's line, no, no, I was not raised to play like that at all. I'm talking about just, standing on the ground, like making sure that I hit the ball the way I want to hit it, and I don't make myself small for you when
Hmm.
it's my time to play. But the stepping into the line, the moving towards my opponent, so that no, that's not. I don't think that's fun because it's dangerous.
Right.
I like, I when sometimes the boys they do trash talk. I find this funny. Even people say it's cheating or not cheating, but at least it's not dangerous. Blocking or stepping into your opponent's line, that's dangerous. We do go fast in a very small cube. We can hurt ourselves.
Right. So the other aspect of that taking up space, and as you said, not get small for the other person or for the sake of the other person, is sort of having to deal with your own reaction to the other person. So, nerves and maintaining this sense of confidence and wanting to win and being able to win. Like, how are you dealing with that?
Well, the problem with the taking space is the we have to it was kind of like a common rule that we have to make ourselves small in the middle of the court, which which technically makes no sense. Yeah, if you lunge to play a ball in the middle, people say you're blocking, but if you lunge to play a ball that's at front, then you're allowed to lunge. So why can't I lunge in the middle of the court? Why do I have to make myself small? So I think this is going, I think, too far, but then people take it to the other, the complete extreme other way, and then it gets dangerous. But the rules change all the time these days. It's hard. It's hard to understand what we're allowed or not allowed to do. This is what I would say.
Mhm.
They change. I think they changing a little bit too much. Sometimes they consider something blocking. Sometimes they consider it fine. It's not easy to adapt these days. It's more to adapt to the rules than anything else.
Are the officials very different? I mean, are they making
No, no, they have
yeah.
sometimes different directions. That they're in different directives
Hmm.
based on what happened in the tournament. We have to react to sometimes, like, sometimes there's, I don't know, loophole, in the rule they made, and then they realize some things. So then it always switches. The officials are honestly doing a great job. These days are trying to be very consistent with their decision. That's the most important. When you get one decision and then you get the same four rallies later, that's where it's important when it's consistent in that sense. But the rules are changing all the time.
Right. Do you get nervous on court?
Oh yeah. Especially since my injuries, I've been injured a lot. So now the more injured I get, the more nervous I get when I come back because I feel like I'm so privileged to be playing now. And instead of just sometime enjoying it and being happy to be on court, I get nervous because I feel like I have to make the most of it sometimes.
How do you deal with your nerves?
It's been so much better. I think that's why I got some good games in the US and then in Canada because I dealt with it better. Before the match I decided to change to this really positive talk, so just telling you, reminding yourself your strength, why you're here, how you train so hard, and also the hard sessions in the summer. This is when you think about them and you remember this is what you did that. So now it's just time to enjoy because you worked so hard. The classic, it's cliche, but it actually does work when you do it well, I believe.
Yeah. Well, let's talk short-term future. What do you have on your schedule coming up?
I'm leaving Saturday. I'm leaving to Cape Town. I have a 30K. This will be my last event of the year. That's a 30K in Cape Town that I'm a number one seed. So I'm hoping, going there, hoping to win this tournament. And then I'm not playing the platinum in Hong Kong, but I will go there and play for a French team at World Team Championship this year in Hong Kong. So that will be the last tournament of the year for me, professional tournament. Then I get to go back home to French Guiana because I'm organizing, me and like the other people from the club, exhibition tournament. So I'm bringing a lot of my teammates that I train with here in Aix-en-Provence in the south of France. I'm taking like a 6 or 7 of them to French Guiana for an exhibition tournament to develop squash, like I said, in the country.
That
And
sounds fun.
oh yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's 1 week of good fun.
Great.
We make them visit the country during the day, and then at night we play the tournament. And the people from the club can enjoy some good quality squash, and they go and they're kind of on vacation. We pay everything for them, like we cover all the expenses, so it's pretty cool. It's a good tournament.
What's food like in French Guiana?
The best food in the world. I mean, it's a mix of you have European cuisine, you have Caribbean and South American. I mean, it's just a mix of all of that. It's a lot of flavor, a lot of rice, rice pretty much every dish, meat because it's we don't really not a lot of vegan or vegetarian in French Guiana, I'll say that. And then we have the sea right there. There's a lot of fish, but flavor, spicy. It's really a mix of Caribbean food and European food.
Nice. So, looking further into the future, since we're talking about food, I read somewhere that you want to open a restaurant.
I love this. I love cooking. My mom just raised me, and she spent all her time in the kitchen. Like very cliche, classic. Like I was raised in the kitchen with my mom, so she was cooking all the time. She cooks for everybody. I have 5 aunts and one uncle. It's a big family, so she would cook majority of the time for everybody. There's like weddings or birthdays, and she would be making the food with my other aunts. It's pretty. We cook a lot in my family. And I was raised by my grandma also, and she was cooking all the time. So it's just natural in my family to cook. And then with squash, I loved it so much because I could change a little bit of the food from French Guiana, trying to make it healthy so I can have a bit of French Guiana all the time, but at the same time eat it during the season. Otherwise, it's a rich, very rich cuisine. So I don't have it so much. So that's where I got my interest into cooking so much. It's my just thing that I like to do when I'm not playing. And then with the injuries, I got to spend a lot of time in the kitchen as well. Except for the wrist injury, that was not easy. But other injuries, I would be able to cook, and I just love food. I mean, in France, we have, I would say, the best cuisine, but I'm biased, and it's easy to fall in love with cooking as well here.
Yeah. What do you cook for yourself when you're like during the season? What are you eating?
Honestly, when I cook these days, I try to make a dish that I would eat in a restaurant every day, but make it healthy. So I
Wow.
really make everything. I do spend hours in the kitchen. To
Wow.
me, it's not I don't have to, cook really quickly so I can eat. I do like to spend my time in there. So I try to make something different all the time. Like I could make I don't know, lasagna, or I could make beef Wellington. I try to make something weird every night because I don't get, not weird, but complicated because I don't get to cook that much. I travel all the time. So if I have like 10 days at home, I'll try to make 10 different dishes.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. For lunch, I don't bother much, but dinner, I cook.
What did you have for you're in Paris now, right? Or I mean, in France now.
I'm in the south of France.
Yeah. So okay, so it's past dinner time. I expect.
Yep,
What
it
did you have
is.
for dinner tonight?
I had a butternut squash roasted with hazelnut and honey, and then I made a whipped ricotta and goat cheese, kind of like, yeah, spread underneath, and then I had the butternut roasted on top. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I really try. I look at the videos and then I try to do it because it's really something that I like to spend time on.
So is this interest in opening a restaurant, is that a sort of a real dream or
No, no, it's a real dream.
okay.
I was trying to register to do this online course, but it's the same with the traveling. It's just not easy to try to find the time to do that because being able to record myself and have a real kitchen all the time is not something that I can guarantee. So not easy, but no, I do. I'd love to have a restaurant one day. It's a real dream. Work with my cousins.
Awesome. How do you manage food and all that on when you're traveling?
Food in terms of cooking or just the diet?
Well, just the diet.
Well, the diet is tough. That's the tough part because when you travel, so you want to try some new things, but at the same time, you got to stay consistent to your diet because that's how it works long term. But it's tough not to find the same ingredients. Honestly, for me, yeah, it's one of the challenges that we have. One of the really hard ones. That's not always you can't always have what you want. So trying to just if you know a lot about nutrition, then you know all the replacement. So the best is to be very well, educated on food and the components and how much this and that, so you can, try to get the same ingredients in different countries. I would say this is how I try to get better by knowing more and so that I can get the same kind of like nutrients I need everywhere I go.
But aren't you staying mostly in hotels, so you're dealing with eating at restaurants and whatnot?
We do that's a lot, but also at the same time you can maybe pick something better on the menu
Right.
that you wouldn't pick, But now there's a lot of tournament with that billets, which is pretty cool actually, because sometimes they usually ask us what we want to eat, so it's easier. And then we have a kitchen so we can cook. And now there are a few tournaments where you figure out your own housing. So we usually do Airbnbs. We usually stay
Mhm.
in apartments. If we have the opportunity of staying in an apartment, we will always take that opportunity because cooking is just easier than the hotel. It's cheaper. That's for sure. But it's also easier if you want to maintain a diet.
Sure.
But then when you're at hotels, well, you try you hope for a fridge and you buy you buy some food, or you just try to, yeah, make the most out of what you have.
Do you have any particular goals for this season?
Yeah, I'd like to reach, I'd like to be in the top 15 by the end of the season. That would be nice. For that I need to be more consistent in my result, but that would be that maybe winning a tournament like a bronze this year would be nice, and improving in the ranking. And that means I'm consistent and staying healthy. That's my main goal, so I can play and try to have this finally a medal with the French team again.
Mhm.
Europeans, we have to get a medal. We finished fourth twice, so this year we got it.
How's your team?
My team, they tough beginning of the season, but it's getting better. They're actually probably playing right now, getting better. But tough year, honestly, for some of my teammates. And we have Camille that came back and plays playing great. Just not ready to play with the team yet, so she's not on the team with us this year. But it's gonna be fine because when we come together, usually we just play better.
That's cool. Well, thank you so much. Is there anything that you wanted to add, maybe about squash that we didn't get to talk about?
Now, squash is awesome. Thanks for having this podcast and talk about squash. This is what we need. Squash is now in the Olympics, so we need to make sure that it's everywhere, that people get involved and excited. So, perfect.
It's such a fun game to play, certainly, but it's also a fun game to watch. So I hope you're
It's
right that.
such a fun game to watch. It's such a fun game to watch.
Do you have goals for the Olympics or eyes on the Olympics?
Of course. I mean, the Olympics in France were just for us French athlete, it was phenomenal, right? It was just the best event. It was awesome. I loved watching the Olympics in France. So obviously, I wanna be part of it one day, and I want to represent my country. And I mean, it's in the U.S. What better country to have the Olympics, right?
Do you know already the qualifications that you're going to have to go through to get on the team?
Not at all. No one knows. No one knows. I mean, they probably know that they're waiting to share the information. We have a little bit, but it's confusing. It's not very it's not the final it's not their final decision for sure. So far we don't know.
Yeah, there's still some time.
Yeah.
Well, good luck. I can't wait to
Thank
watch
you.
you. Hopefully, I'll see you in Cleveland soon. And
Yes.
good luck before that.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's thank professional squash player Melissa Alves again. It's always so special when athletes take time to chat to hear her sports while they are in season. I so appreciate their time and interest in sharing their thoughts, ideas, and also themselves, of course. Other pro squash players have been on the show. Amanda Sobey describes her recovery and comeback from her second Achilles tendon rupture in episode 175, and she discusses her decade-long battle with an eating disorder in episode 145. In episode 159, Gina Kennedy, world rank number 6, says squash is the sport of gladiators. If you want to hear from another woman who likes contact in her sport, check out the episode right before this one with roller derby player Elizabeth Holden. Thank you for listening. Hear Her Sports is one of the few podcasts that give female athletes and women in sport the time and the space to talk about what's important to them and about their sports. It's a perfect way to get to know the female athletes you love and to meet new ones. I'm so grateful to be part of this community of female athlete guests and women's sports fans and athletes like you. Finding community is one of the greatest things about sports. It is just the best to hear stories from other female athletes in their own voices. These stories make us all stronger and allow us to understand ourselves better and see we are part of a really big group of like-minded women. I'll see you in 2 weeks when we meet another fantastic woman in sport. Bye-bye.
Women's Running Stories, where we explore the intersection between running and life. Because every woman who is committed to a running journey has a story to tell, and this is where you'll find those stories. I am host and producer Cherie Louise Turner. I'm a 53-year-old runner, and together with original music by musician and runner Cormac O'Regan, we bring these inspirational stories to life. Please join us to fuel your adventures.